Hello, all my knitting friends. Welcome to Hudson Valley Knits. I am Amy, your host, otherwise known as Memers on Ravelry. Thank you for joining me today for episode 6, Under the Weather. If you can't notice, I am under the weather. In more ways than one. My nose is red. I have got a terrible cold. And it's also been snowing outside, which is nice. I like the snow. If it does snow, I usually can work from home, so it's not a big deal for me. I'm going to make this a relatively short podcast. I don't have a lot of new things to show you, and I, of course, am not feeling well. This is actually my second recording because I had so many coughing fits in the first one that I decided to just do it all over again. I also kept forgetting things, and it was a disaster. So thank you for tuning in to me here. I have some quick updates to share with you. The Gift Along Knit Along is going along much better now, and I'm so excited to see all the finished objects you guys are posting. So keep them coming. I want to point out one little thing though. In the chat thread, the chatter thread for the Gift Along Knit Along, there's people posting their finished objects there. And I just want to make sure everybody realizes that to have a chance to win the skein of yarn that I'm offering, you have to post the picture in the finished object thread because that's where I'll be looking when I draw the number. Speaking of drawing numbers, I am going to be drawing for my first free pattern giveaway today because I have 101 members now in the Hudson Valley Knits group on Ravelry. So I will do that at the very end of the podcast. That's one of the things I forgot to do when I recorded the first one. So we'll definitely get that one in. And what else we got? I have some works in progress, of course. One finished object, a couple of stash enhancements. I have a little story to tell you at the end, which you can kind of, you don't have to stay for if you don't want. I'll show all the good stuff in the beginning. And like I said, in the end, I'll be drawing the name for the winner, but I'll put it in the show notes too. So I do have a couple of shout outs. I wanted to put out some thank yous for some reviews I got on iTunes. One is to Emily Straw. Thank you for the wonderful review. Emily also has a podcast out there. Excuse me. I had mentioned it last week, and it is called, what is it called? Knitting Butterflies. So, Emily, thank you so much. I also want to thank Renee Loves You. Renee Loves You. Thank you for your review on iTunes. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. And CRZ Jane, or Crazy Jane, I saw your review also, and my gratitude for that. 2 more thank yous, and then I'll stop bothering you with these, but I'd like to get these out there because it's very important to me to acknowledge when someone, goes out of their way for you. And I wanted to put a really big thank you out there to Tina from Knitting Blooms podcast, who put together the most amazing how-to tutorial for video podcasting. She just put it up, I think yesterday or the day before. But if you are ever wanted to do a video podcast, I suggest you go check out her tutorial. It was amazingly good, and she's just been so helpful. I posted a couple of questions in her thread, and she was more than happy to help me out. So Tina, thank you very much. I've always been impressed with the quality of Tina's videos, and you can tell she really puts a lot into it and means a lot to her. So it's really great to get to know all the things that you've learned in your 2.5 years of podcasting, so that I don't have to go through and learn them the long way too. So thank you. Also, to Emily of Fibertown Podcast for mentioning me in your podcast last week. It definitely, a lot of people came over and said that they heard about me through your podcast. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I'm really honored that you enjoy it enough to have mentioned it in your own podcast. So that's it with the thank yous and the announcements. Let's get to the works in progress. So I am still working on my herbaceous socks. They are coming along very nicely. I'm in the last repeat for the leg. And I'm really loving this yarn and this pattern. The second sock is going much faster because I'm really much more used to the pattern now. If you are thinking about knitting this, the only thing I would say is that these, I think for ear of corn, she calls it, this pattern on the side here kind of makes it for a slow going because there are little 2-stitch cables there. So it's not like something you can knit up real quick, or at least it slowed me down a little bit. But the lace part is very easy and easy to pick up. But I highly recommend the pattern. It's very well written. I love knitting them. I love the yarn from Ooh Fancy Pants. I know she's taking a little dyeing hiatus because she's back to work in the schools. So, but hopefully she'll start dyeing again because she makes a great yarn. She puts out a great colors. So that's the herbaceous socks. Really love that. And I'll definitely get that done for Mom by Christmas. I did start a relatively easy project too. I have some yarn that homespun yarn that I have to use, that I want to use. I don't have to. It is actually the Knitting Blooms podcast is doing a knitting, spinning, crochet along for any fibers by the North Cabin Fiber Arts, and I bought some fiber from them. And this is basically superwash merino that I spun up with her fibers. And, you know, keep in mind, I'm very new to spinning. I only started like this past summer, and I've not perfected my skills. And this is kind of like maybe like the second or third skein I've ever spun. And if anything, I did overspin it. But I want to use it, and I was trying to figure out what I could make with this. And I decided to make a nice size cowl. And I have a pink coat that maybe I could wear it with. So that's what this is going to be. Just a plain old cowl, garter stitch. And it's coming out really soft and lovely. So this is just some fast, easy knitting. And what else do I have? So I've been working on my Against the Current shawl, which is my own pattern. You can see kind of a version of it in my finished objects. I made for my sister a couple of years ago for her birthday. And I just decided to write up the pattern. And so I had the charts all done, and what I'm doing now is I'm just knitting it up and trying to figure out the yarn usage, and I did some frogging based on some advice from Laura Nelkin when I met her at my knitting guild. She said to weigh your yarn before and after every row to really get the proper amount of yarn necessary for your pattern, that you have to do this and you have to be willing to rip out. And I did. I ripped out, and I don't have good light for you to see the gorgeous colors of this Madeline Tosh sock yarn. It's called Worn Denim, and it's got beautiful greens and blues in it. So this is definitely coming along. I have gotten a couple more. I have two people have offered to test knit for me, which I'm very grateful for. I wouldn't mind having one or two more. And I would say that you have to be comfortable with lace knitting and have knitted some shawls in the past, because it does involve some chart reading that's kind of, you have to move markers around and things, so you have to be really comfortable with lace knitting is all I ask. However, I wouldn't mind having one or two people who are beginner lace knitters, or maybe they're kind of ready to take it to the next level. I would be interested to see how well you're able to read the pattern And if you're able to make sense of it, that will give me a good idea of how well the pattern is written. So, and you could do it with 1 or 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn. So let me know if you're interested. Send me a PM. And that's the Against the Current shawl. And I think that's it for my works in progress. I don't usually have a lot of works in progress on the needle. In my projects page, I do have one other that I think I'm going to put in hibernate, and that is the maiden hair wrap that I was making for my aunt. If you recall, last week I said I was going to make my aunt a different shawl. I was going to make her what was it? The pie shawl from Donna Draconis from her Knitting in Stories and Stitches 2 book. Donna is doing hosting a knit along, and if you check out her Ravelry group, you can do it. The cast on date is January 1st. So I guess let me just show you my finished object real quick, and then I'll show you the yarn I bought for the pie shawl. Okay. So here is a project I just finished yesterday, and it's still very wet. Well, damp, quite damp. And it's the Cambio cowl by Lauren Nelkin. It was one of the kits I bought from her at our Knitting Guild meeting. I love the colors, and actually she had a sale, a 30% off sale, 30% off all her kits, and I scapped up another one in blues. I love it so much, and for 30% off, you can't beat that. I love how this turned out. The yarns are fabulous. The colors are fabulous. The instructions are fabulous. Everything's wonderfully done. I highly recommend this pattern and her kits. The only thing I did that I don't know, I'm a little disappointed in is, I knit in the round, and if you look, you can see I have some gaps there. Can you see right there where I've, you can see some holes, like where my round joint. I've never had that problem before. I'm really kind of like disappointed in it. Like here's a really big, you can see the hole there. And that's the beginning of the round, and it's just, I don't know what I did wrong there. But I guess I could put this in the back and no one will see it. But it's still drying. And I have to mention with this, I think it's 90 of one color and 120 yards of another color is all you need to make this cowl. So if you have some luxuriously beautiful sock yarn lying around, you don't need much to knit up one of these beautiful cowls. So if you want to use it as like a way to use up some scraps, it's a great way to do that. And you can just buy the pattern separate. It's gorgeous. So I definitely think I might make some more with some of my beautiful yarns that I didn't have the heart to throw away because they're so beautiful, but aren't really enough to do much with. So yeah, this is extremely happy with this. Love it a lot. Cambio cowl. I think it's the flame colorway. I think that's what you named it. Excuse me. Actually, I can tell you in a second. Yeah, flare. Excuse me, the flare colorway. Here's, you can see how nicely she presents her patterns. And it's all like laminated, so it's not going to wear out. And then the chart for this pattern was like on a separate card, which made it easier for me to, transportable. Very well done. I'm really pleased with that. So those are my only works in progress, guys. I'll keep working on my shawl, and I'll finish this sock for my mom for Christmas. And I really don't want to start anything else because, not that I wouldn't love to start a new project, there's a lot that I'd love to start, but I'm also thinking if I finish Mom's socks soon enough that I will, I pulled, my family, we put names in a hat and everybody pulls a name. And my husband and I pulled my mother and my father. And So my mom's getting the socks, and I also brought her some Deepak Chopra meditation CDs. I love him. I'm a big fan of his, and so is she. And so I bought her those. And I might get her some of her favorite perfume. I'm not sure, but I asked her, what should I get Pa, And she's like, I bought him a couple of things. I hope he's not watching. I'll have to make sure they don't watch this. Anyway, if I have time, she said he could use a nice warm hat, but it has to be soft because he doesn't like the scratchy wool on his bald head. So, and they live way up in upstate New York, so it gets really cold up there. And yeah, so I'll try and knit him up a nice soft hat. If not, I'll have to get him something. I don't know what. Mom said she'd think about it. So that's it. And like I said, the wrap's going to go into hibernation. I'm going to make that pie shawl from my aunt. While I have that in my mind, I'm going to show you the yarn I got, but let me show you a picture of the shawl again. And this is the teal colorway that I ordered from String Theory Yarns. I hope you can kind of make out the colors, but you should definitely go check it out. And if you don't have this book, I recommend it. I did a review a couple of podcasts back. But let me show you the yarn now because it's really gorgeous. It's super soft. It's 70% merino, a superwash merino, 10 cashmere, 10 nylon. So this is the lightest one, and it's called teal, I think, right? Light teal. Gorgeous. And then next we have, the next darker one is like a little darker, maybe even a little greener, and with touches of brown, speckles of brown in there. And this is called, labradorite. Labradorite. I can't pronounce it, but you can see how they, transition, and it's a beautiful transition. So you go from like this pure teal, light teal, to this darker, greener teal with little touches of brown. And then you go to this one, which has a darker teal, and maybe even, it's about the same amount of green, but it goes a little darker, and it also has little touches of black because the border is basically black. And it's just jet black. There's nothing to see. So, I could put this close, but this is the border. And that's why I want to show you the picture, or you should look at the picture online, because the black border just makes it look gorgeous. So, yeah, and String Theory yarn, they caked up all my yarn for me, so it's ready to go. I didn't have to bother caking it. They give you this nice zipper plastic bag to put it in. So I'm really, really excited to make this. And this is what I decided will be the gift from my aunt. And the knit along goes up until March 16th, because Get It 3.16 is pie, and March 16th. And that will it should be ready. Excuse me. I don't want to go into another coughing fit. Should be ready for my visit down there for Easter. So that was one acquisition. And then I did buy two more project bags from Tangerine Designs. I hadn't owned one up till now, so I bought these smaller ones because I do have a shortage of smaller project bags. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I thought the monkey one was adorable, so I scapped that one up. And then I bought this Winter Wonderland one, and I just love it. It's so, from my day and time. It reminds me of the kind of wrapping paper you'd see on presents when I was a kid. And it has sleigh riders and ice skaters and snowmen, and it's just beautiful. So, as everyone else says, these are great bags, and I highly recommend them. So, definitely a great purchase. I'm thrilled. So that's it with the acquisitions. So I do have a little bit of chit chat stuff, nitty talk. Um, and follow me along here. Bear with me, because I got to tell you a little story, and then I'll segue into what I'm going to get into with this. Excuse me. So we had our Christmas party this past Thursday at work, at the office. It was like a potluck thing. Everybody brings in something, and uh, the afternoon, my boss suggested, why don't we see if there's anything we could do to volunteer, and then we'll do a volunteer event, and then we'll go to the party. So one of the girls in our group did a little calling around, and the Salvation Army was in need of help to prepare some gift packages for the local nursing homes. Now, I was like really excited about this because here's where I have to get a little detail, a little history of myself. Excuse me. Years ago, when I was in my teens, I had originally wanted to be a nurse, and I did take a nursing course in conjunction with when I was in high school. And I never finished it, but I did continue to work in the nursing homes that we had done some internship with. So I have a special place in my heart for the elderly, because working in the nursing home for the about 3 years that I did, which was of course part-time because I was a student, but it was full-time over the summer, and a couple of summers I worked in 2 of them, one in the daytime, one at night. And one of the nursing homes was especially difficult because most of the patients there could not take care of themselves at all. They were completely dependent. Some of them couldn't even feed themselves, let alone get around and walk, and you had to bathe them. You had to put them on special toilet seats. Some of them wore diapers. So you get the idea. And it was it was a hard job, and it's part of the reason why I ended up not becoming a nurse, was because it was grueling and highly stressful. And these were people's lives, and it's an extremely important job. Everyone that works in that nursing home has an extremely important job, and these people have lost everything, including their dignity and control over their lives. I'm sorry, pardon my cough, but what I'm getting at is this one day, my I changed as a person as a result of an experience in the nursing home. And it was basically, there were 2 people working that day when there's usually 5. So the 2 of us had more than double the workload. That's because people were constantly quitting or calling in sick back then. And most of these people couldn't feed themselves. So when the lunch trays came and we had more than double the people to feed and only a half an hour to do it in, it was really stressful. And I was feeding this one patient, and I was literally shoveling food in his mouth. And I'm trying to make this a really short story, but you have to understand this changed me. I was getting annoyed with him because he wasn't eating fast enough, and I had other people to feed, and I was very stressed out. I was probably 16 or 17 years old at the time. And I looked at him, and I realized he was crying, and that all the food was coming out the side of his mouth. It was horrible. He was still in bed because we were so short-staffed. We really couldn't take the time to get people out of bed. And it was then I realized that, this is probably was his only contact with a human being for hours that day, and I was yelling at him, and it was awful. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't finish feeding him. I had to go and feed the other patients, and he couldn't even talk, mind you. He mumbled a lot, but you could not understand a single word he said. I'm not sure what was wrong with him, but his joints were totally stiff, so he couldn't move. He couldn't feed himself. and he couldn't communicate. His name was John. So I told John I would come back when I got all my work done, and I would feed him and he could take all the time he needed. And I cleaned him up a little, and I went and did the best I could for the rest of the day. And then when my shift was over and I had clocked out, I went back to John's room. By this time, the dinner trays were out. And I spent about an hour feeding him his dinner, which he didn't even eat half of it, but he took all the time he needed. And while I was feeding him, I talked to him and I told him about myself and my name and where I was from and what I was doing with my friends. And I could tell he was listening to me. And I never really gave him a chance to talk because I never had heard this man talk. So after he was done eating, I took him to the shower room and I gave him a nice shower. And I know this is what I'm talking about. I had to give this elderly man a shower because that's how they got taken care of. He couldn't do it himself. So they have lost their dignity. So you have to do all this with a sense and still give them a sense of dignity. It's not an easy job. Got him back in bed. I changed his sheets, got him a fresh gown, and gave him a shave. And excuse me, he started trying to. I could tell he was trying to talk to me, and it took like over a half an hour, but he was able to tell me very slowly the name of his wife, how much he loved her, that he worked as an accountant and he went to college, and that he fought in World War II. And I had never heard him say words before. It was not easy to understand him. But what I learned from all this is that we can't, these people, they're real people. And they have lost their dignity. They've lost probably almost their whole family at this point, or their family is not close. Many of them are not lucky enough to have family nearby. And they need us more. They need us. And one day, that could be us. So where am I going with all this? We went to the we went to the Stanford Salvation Army. That's where we volunteered, Stanford, Connecticut, and the gifts that we were putting together for them to hand out to at the nursing homes consisted of, and I am not putting down the Salvation Army at all. I was so happy that somebody was doing something, and they were doing the best they could with what they had. And if anything, just the visit probably thrilled these elderly people. They got, there was a whole bunch of boxes of hotel soaps and lotions and shampoos and stuff. And that was donated, and they were all crushed. So you could tell the hotel was giving them just crap. And they also got those little socks that you get if you go to the hospital and they have the skid-proof stuff on the bottom. They got a pair of those that said Merry Christmas on them. And they got these magazines that the Salvation Army puts out, and that was it. And they were going to go to the nursing home with children, and the children were going to pass it out. And I thought that was all beautiful, but I felt so sad that this was all that they were getting. And I thought, how nice would it be if they had a little hand-knit washcloth, just something a little more personal that you knew that somebody went through the trouble to make or put together, instead of, the socks and hotel soaps that, they had no use for. That's something that said, I care about you. So I would like to start a thread, and it's going to be a year-long thread because it's too late this year. I would like to start a washcloth collection for the elderly. I would do it through the Salvation Army in Stamford, Connecticut, because I talked to them and they said they would love that, and they would have to validate that. They would have to make sure it's okay with the nursing homes, but I can't see why it wouldn't. A cotton washcloth wouldn't be okay. And I would like to start collecting them. They deliver to approximately 200 residents. They have to deliver gifts to. So I am going to start a thread in my group And maybe even I'll talk to other podcasters. And throughout the year, if you have some cotton yarn in your stash and you need some TV knitting, knit me one washcloth or two washcloths. I mean, there's 100 people in the group now. If each of us do two washcloths, everyone in that nursing home could have a really special gift. So let me know what you think. I'm going to start a thread and I'll explain all of it in the thread. And I will definitely try and get some really, really nice prizes to give away as well. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Yeah, that's something close to my heart. And it would be all year. So, it would be Christmas all year, which is something that we don't do. And I think it'll feel good. So that being said, let's get down to me letting you know how much I appreciate you. And I am going to draw a number for the free pattern giveaway. Now I had 101 members, but one of them is me. So I am going to draw a number between 2 and 101. And I'm going to generate. Oh, and it's 96. I think you can see that. I'm sure you trust me. So I downloaded the list already, and number 96 is OC Knitter, or Jerry. So OC Knitter, I will send you a PM, and you can let me know what pattern you'd like. Anything under $10. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you for bearing with my sniffles and my coughs. Trust me, it wasn't half as bad as my first attempt at recording this. It was bad. So, yeah, hopefully when I see you next week, my nose won't be so red and I'll be feeling better. But you all have a great week. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.